You talk about a lot about wanting people to really understand doctors and that relationship between patients and doctors. How much as you form these characters were you trying to bring that out?
Quite a bit. I mean, you know, I think that there's an interesting stop to the conversation in medicine. You know, when a doctor makes a mistake, a patient thinks that's a bad doctor. And they may even think that's a bad human being. And they may be right in some situations. But I think what they don't see is how hard the doctors and their group of people can be on themselves. This is aside from, you know, lawyers and administrators. That process still exists. But the fact that they would really internalize, they would discuss this, they would carry it with them, they would make it so that people could learn from that mistake. I don't think people ever get to see that part of the story. So I don't know in some ways what the reaction will be. And it's not to try and gain sympathy for the medical establishment. I think it's more in an effort to tell the whole story.
Yeah, and obviously in the book, I haven't seen the show yet, but in the book, you know, these characters are holding some of those mistakes with them as they travel through the story. Have you personally, is there any one experience that you as a doctor have taken through that comes to mind?
But I've clearly been in situations where I felt that, you know, somebody, you know, if they are not getting the best care that they could get, did something bad happen? Was there a mistake that was made? And it's hard. I also think that most doctors, if you ask them about their careers near the end of their career, for good or for bad, what they typically remember the most are the bad outcomes. Even the thousands of good outcomes. There was a friend of mine who was a pediatric heart surgeon in Arkansas. One of the most talented guys. He developed a ventricular assist device for kids who are awaiting transplants. I mean, this amazing guy. You know, he killed himself a couple years ago, and he wrote in this letter that even though the thousands of children that he had helped, there was a couple kids he could never quite lose. And I think that's, you know, obviously doctors don't kill themselves often, but that's a sentiment that I think a lot of doctors share.
I think, and it probably will come out on the show, which is what happens when a doctor starts feeling slightly insecure or that self-doubt. I find it incredible, Sanjay. If I go to work and I don't do a great job, maybe the worst thing happens is my bosses aren't happy, the interview with Sanjay Gupta wasn't as great as I wanted it to be, which is terrible, but for you, you know, it's life or death. How do you cope with that, and how are you communicating that in the show?
You know, I think a lot of doctors cope with this in different ways. Some doctors I've seen completely paralyzed by it. They cannot continue practicing. They have to go in a different direction in life. There are some who just become, you know, emotional, sort of hard stones you just can't penetrate anymore. And, you know, I'd like to think that I'm somewhere in the middle of that, you know, where I don't let go of those things. I think that that's wrong. I just don't think you let go of these things. But you don't become paralyzed by them either. You know, you think about these patients.